Okay, I'm ready.
I'm leaving this in.
No, you're not.
This is Corey,
And I'm Sharonda.
and this is Until Forever. I'm sorry, we're having a silly time here, but this is a relationship podcast, and we are in no way, shape, or form. What is wrong with me
Blah,
today?
blah, 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 blah.
Oh my Lord, we're in no way, shape, or form considered to be experts, gurus, any of that stuff. We just want to have a conversation. We want to help you. We're hoping that you're being helped, and we're open to be helped. So we're hoping that when you're listening and you're hearing us talk, that you may have something to share with us.
Yeah.
Share it.
Please.
We've been getting some responses. We even got a question. We may get to that.
We're so excited.
Yeah, we are. This is awesome. It means you're listening and you're watching, and tell them how to find us.
We are on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. And everything is at Until Forever Podcast.
Yes, it is at Until Forever Podcast. We're even on Anchored.
That's to listen. I just gave them social media.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm learning Anchored.
Okay.
So we're going to continue our marriage in the church series. That's why I slipped up and said marriage.
Yeah.
Because we're in our marriage series. We're talking about marriage in the church, and even what leads to marriage in the church. Because we've noticed that there's some differences when it comes
Definitely
to church relationships, and we want to bring that out. We want to talk about it, and you guys are listening to it, so it means you're interested. So again, we don't want to end the series too quick. So if there's something you want us to talk about or you want us to dive into, feel free to reach out to us so we can jump into that.
Yes.
We had the sex talk last week.
And before that, we talked about infidelity.
We sure did. And that small head, big body guy, what's his name?
Derek Jackson.
Derek, small head, big body.
You don't have to say
Jackson. Why not?
that. It's not nice either. It's
You're
kind
right.
of bullying.
It's not nice. I'm not bullying him. I wish I had small head, big body.
Okay. So, this week,
You're not just going to
what
ignore.
are we talking about?
Okay. This week, we are talking about matchmaking in the church, and the pressure of getting married that exists in the church. And the effect that it can have. That's a long tail title, but there's so much in there. This might end up being 2 parts, honestly.
You think so?
But there's a lot in there, and I just want to dive in here, and I want to ask you, because Sharonda was actually born and raised in the church. So when she was born, she had the Holy Ghost. It was there.
No.
And she was born accepting Christ. She came out the womb and said, "Ebobo," and that's we're not gonna. Is that what you said?
No.
Well, maybe she didn't speak in tongue out of the womb. I'm sorry, I'm teasing. We know that we're born into sin. For the deep Bible scholars out there, we're born into sin. You have to accept Christ later in life. But I want to know from you, my wife, my rib, my beautiful, lovely, strong black woman.
Okay.
Was there pressure as you were growing up to be in a beautiful Christian marriage?
No.
That's amazing.
I mean, was there, you mean like pressure to be married or pressure to date and marry according to Christian teaching?
Oh yeah, kind of both. Like when, as you grew and as you went through life, teenage years, was there like that goal there, lingering, that you knew eventually I have to get to where I'm in a good Christian relationship, and that leads to marriage, not just out here doing what I want, but the pressure of, because you're a pastor's kid, you're a PK, and or preacher's kid, I guess that's what PK means, but you know what I mean.
It means either one.
You know how what?
It means either one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what you said. So yeah. So was there that pressure there that you have to get married? It's probably got to be a preacher because your father's a preacher. You're probably going to be the first lady because your mother was the first lady. Like, was there that?
I didn't
pressure?
feel that, especially from my parents. I probably heard it from other people in church.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more than anything, it was just me, myself. I mean, being a typical girl, just thinking about boys and dating and daydreaming about what it would be like to be married and what my wedding would be like and what my marriage would be like. I had no intentions of marrying a preacher, because my dad was a preacher my whole life. He was a preacher when him and my mom got married, and then he went from that to assistant pastor, and from there to pastor. A lot of ministers in our family, very heavy in the church on my dad's side, and then even my aunt ended up marrying a preacher, a pastor. So my cousins grew up as PKs as well. Just never intended on marrying a pastor, but I did daydream about being married. I always thought I would marry somebody that I knew from church. But I think that's just because of the culture I was in. I'm not sure. I'm sure other girls probably have different storylines about, and you always tell me I'm different anyway.
Yeah, this is true.
I just wasn't the typical girl. And also, like, the more my mother realized I was getting like boy crazy, the more she like just became more transparent about her story, and growing up, and the importance of waiting till marriage for sex, that dating is for marriage, not recreational, that I can have friends, and so I don't think I ever felt the pressure. And I think, we definitely got married before I was, what, how old were we? You turned 30 right after we got married. So then I was 27.
Yeah, well, it would be 10 years ago this year. So.
Oh yeah, I'll be 37. So I was 27 when we got married.
Yep.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite at the age where people were pressuring me, like, when are you going to get married? And trying to fix me up with different people at church.
Which is interesting because when we were coming up, 27 was late.
Yeah, I definitely thought I was late getting married. I felt like my goal in life was to be married by the time I was 23 and 24. Yep. And I didn't even have a boyfriend when I was 23 and 24. So yeah, I don't think I felt pressure though.
Well, because this age nowadays, 30 is when you start looking to get married. It seems like you're supposed to just do what you want in your 20s. That, at least that's my perception.
That's the modern day perception. Modern day perception. But they're typically, by the time you're like 25 to 27, most people start looking to be in a serious relationship to move towards marriage in like a couple of years or something like that.
Well, see, okay, so now for me, that pressure was there, and it's because my grandfather's this bishop, this big figure, and
right. Okay.
No, what? Go ahead.
He was just a bishop right when I met you. Do you think you felt pressure before then?
Yes, because before then he's the superintendent, and before that it's just my church growing up, it was a big deal. Like, relationships were kind of on display, if that makes sense. Not like on purpose, but maybe it was on purpose. But you see the husband come in, he's suited up, his tie matches his wife's whole outfit. You know what I mean? Like, it's got different colors, and the colors match or whatnot. They may have bought it from the same store. They may just be very talented in coordination. I don't know, but if for whatever reason that was what it was, and then he goes up into the pulpit, and he's this, big preacher, and his wife goes and sits over where the other, preacher wives are sitting, and it's like, this is the standard. This is what you aim towards. Of course, nobody stood up in the pulpit and said, young man, you should focus on being just like this. But because that was so on display, it's kind of what you felt that your life should be patterned after. So even when I wasn't thinking about marriage, I wasn't thinking about being in a committed relationship. Whenever I was talking to a young lady, it was always that, how would she be as a first lady thought? Even though I was in no shape to be preaching or being in the pulpit or anything like that. It was like, how would she look with a church hat? You know what I mean? And it's insane, but that was literally the pressure growing up, and it might have something to do with the fact that I grew up Kojic, and that's just how it looked for in the Kojic church. But the pressure was there for me. I think it's interesting that you're saying it's not. And shout out to your moms, to Mama Craig, because the transparency that she gave you when you were younger is something that a lot of parents don't do. And I think it's extremely important that we are transparent. That's something that I didn't get. Not to say my mom was terrible or nothing like that. It's just that when we were growing up, we grew up where adult business stayed adult business, and when you became of age, meaning you were grown and finna leave the house, then maybe we share some stuff about our marriage and our relationship. But it was.
Well, she wasn't quite. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
She wasn't quite sharing about her marriage. It was like, okay, you're 14, 15. I see you're getting interested in boys. And I'm sure my dad was probably like getting nervous, and he was probably telling her, you need to talk to her. Because I remember one time where he told my mom I was on the phone for like an hour with a boy, and I was like, it didn't last more than 10 minutes. But
what was his name though?
I don't think I should divulge somebody's name on the podcast.
Okay, you're right. Afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay. But so yeah, she was just honest with me about whatever was going on in her life at the time she was my age. So what was happening when she was 14 to 18. And then also when I went out to college, I remember she typed this letter out for me and just kind of encouraged me to graduate first before I got into a serious relationship and marriage, because those were things that she desired, that she wished she would have done. But yeah, the transparency was there. She didn't approach it like a lot of other, and she wasn't trying to be my friend either. Right. Right. She wasn't trying to be my friend like some of my other friends' parents were. But she definitely was transparent, and I appreciate it. And you brought up a good point, because while you were talking, I was thinking, well, I wonder, is it a difference in, like, no offense to Faith Temple or any other churches that in the district or anything like that, but like those are churches with people with less than like 100 people in the congregation. But my church, when I was growing up, it had more than 200 people in the congregation. So I mean, as a teenager, we kind of had focus on other teen couples in the church, like, oh, her boyfriend's coming to church with her, oh, nice to meet you, and things like that. But we never really paid attention to adult couples, and the pressure wasn't there. It was just more so like, who's dating who, as a, like, from a teen point of view, but not, are you gonna get married and have kids and all this other stuff.
Okay. Well, I mean, the pressure is, I don't even know whether I can say it's a good thing or a bad thing. I just know that it existed, and it kind of made me see, like, there's this stigma on marriage, where marriage is an actual goal in life. Like, you start here, you get to this point, you get through school or whatever, and then you start dating to marry, and then comes the children, and then after that, comes the grandchildren, and I think it's dangerous to not be transparent, because some people don't get married, and then some people get married and they don't have the children. So then when you have these unrealistic, well, maybe not unrealistic, but when you have these goals, like if you put marriage as a goal, and this might shake some stuff, and I'm sorry, but if you put marriage as a goal, and God never had it as your future, you know what I mean, then you set yourself up for a level of disappointment to where you're like, well, this was supposed to be what happens. I'm supposed to get to marriage age and get married and have a family, and if I'm not getting married, then there's this gap, this hole, this goal that I thought was supposed to be next on my list. So then you start seeking God for marriage. You start seeking God for companionship, for someone, to belong to, when it may not be in his will for you. And I think that's dangerous. I think it's scary too, because you start centering your life around what you can have on earth when we're supposed to be kingdom focused.
Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned, your grandfather, excuse me, your grandfather was a pastor and then a superintendent, then the bishop. Did you feel like people in church were constantly introducing you to young ladies they felt that you should be in a relationship with? Because to me, that's matchmaking.
Yeah, and I don't think I was introduced to people, but I think it was a hunch. Pastor such and such coming. She's got a daughter about your age. You know what I mean? And it was almost like it was almost like the old times, the Bible times, where you can marry into a family, and these are two families that have churches that are, preaching families, and let's unite these families together and create this big, I don't know, conglomerate or whatever. And it's it's kind of unspoken or whatnot, but I did, and I would also look at certain young ladies that came from families where they may have belonged to a church, or the pastor was the dad or the granddad, because I felt like that was who I was supposed to match with, because my grandfather was a pastor, and my goal was to eventually preach or be this big person in the church, which is not the goal now. That was just how my mind worked, because that was what I saw. So that's crazy.
Without putting names out there, do you know of any marriages where you think it was more like a matchmaking situation?
Yes. Yes, and I know of churches that do the matchmaking thing. And it may not be so in your face, but there are pastors and preachers out there that look out in their congregation and they put people together. I was in a situation personally where I was out doing my worst, and got in a situation where the young lady came up pregnant, and it was not by me, but it was thought that it was, and because of that, I was told, go on and marry her. The exact,
I already know this story he's telling you guys.
I ain't gonna tell the whole story, and I can't. Y'all want to hear it? No, I ain't gonna tell it.
We're not talking about that today.
But the exact wording was, if she was good enough to lay with, she's good enough to marry. And I'm like, wow, okay, Lord, I guess this this is the biblical way. This is the Christian way to do it, is to make another mistake over a mistake. So I mean, that all is a part of that pressure. So I mean, even okay. Well, so go ahead, because I'm gonna go somewhere else when you finish.
Well, I guess, are we talking about are we gonna go with the better to marry than to burn, or are we going with matchmaking? And he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Let's do the because we're there.
So this is going to end up being 2 parts.
Yeah, I told you. So let's okay. So the better to marry than to burn. Where is that in the scripture? Where is that in the scripture? I'm gonna pull it up, because we had looked it up, and first of all, who said it?
Paul. It sounds like something Paul would say. Yeah. Corinthians, Paul.
It's in Corinthians. And I think what I'll do Amplified says, but if they do not have self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion, is what the Amplified says. King James says, but if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. NLT, which is probably my preferred version, says, but if they can't control themselves,
Pause.
Pause.
Or there's got to be a pause.
We can't. We don't pause. Just gonna blow your nose.
You're gonna
girl.
have to jump it or something.
Okay. I don't know how I'm gonna jump it. But
What?
the NLT.
You're not gonna cut this out?
No. It's
Corey.
the people need to see the real.
No, Corey.
Just blow your nose. This is a disclaimer. Listen.
No.
She's got allergies like crazy, and I found out that if you're from Chicago, Illinois, and
You have an
move
assumption. You didn't find
to
it
Carbondale, this is scientifically proven.
out. No, it's not.
If you move to Carbondale, Illinois from Chicago, Illinois, you automatically have allergies every time the season changes. I don't get it. I don't know what it is.
Tree pollen is very high right now.
I think it's something in
And the
the
kids
water.
and I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm. There's something in
Hence
there.
my tea. My hot
Anyway,
water.
1 Corinthians 7th chapter 9th verse, the New Living Translation says, but if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. So what does that mean?
What does it mean?
I mean, it means just what it says. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. But who is he talking to here? Who is he talking to? What's the context of that scripture?
Are you asking or are you?
Yeah, I'm asking you. What do you think? What is the context of that scripture?
We didn't discuss this.
We didn't have to discuss it.
So I don't know the context.
Okay, so let's do it like this. Okay, all right. So verse 6. I say this as a concession, not as a command, but I wish everyone were single, just as I am. Yet each person has a special gift from God of one kind or another. So I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it's better to stay unmarried, just as I am. But if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust. But for those who are married, I have a command that comes not from me, but from the Lord. A wife must not leave her husband, but if she does leave him, let her remain single, or else be reconciled to him, and the husband must not leave his wife. Now I will speak to the rest of you. Okay, so basically, we take that.
He said, if you can't control, well, I'm reading the NLT version.
Okay.
And verse 8 says, so I say to those who aren't married and to widows, it's better to stay unmarried just as I am. Verse 9, but if they can't control themselves, they should go ahead and marry. It's better to marry than to burn with lust.
Mm-hmm. So what are you saying?
I'm saying what you're saying, but I'm saying like he's basically saying like, listen, don't be out here single, burning with lust for somebody. Just go ahead and get married.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But we take that. The church will take that and say, y'all sleeping together? Go on, marry him then. It's better to marry than to burn. But I mean,
but the people aren't compatible. They don't need to be in a relationship with each other.
Right. So what does that mean?
They basically friends with benefits.
Okay. This is what I'm getting at. We take that and we make people
get married
when we should be talking to them about how to date and what it means to be in a relationship and how everything has a purpose. We miss purpose. Some of us date to have fun, and when you do that, you set yourself up to be in a situation where you about to mess up. You're about to mess up, because if you're dating without purpose, that means you don't have a start, a middle, an end. You don't have a reason. All you want to do is have fun. When purpose is involved, you make the decisions that you need to make. You say, okay, here's the first couple of weeks of this relationship. You're looking for the qualities. You're seeing if you're compatible. You're not just saying I'm freaky and I want to have relations. And then after the first month or so, if it lasts that long, then you're saying, do I see myself with this person for the rest of my life? Are you praying together? Is the purpose of you dating to be married? But we take better to marry than to burn, and we say, look, just go ahead and do it. God will bless the union. You'll be fine. And I think that's wrong. I think we're messing up when we do that. You don't know?
Sorry. I think we've gotten off of matchmaking, sort of, though.
We did. We're going to have, this has to be 2 parts. Because, and this is a part of matchmaking, because when the church tells you, whoever you're dating, that if y'all can't keep from having sex, you need to get married, then in a way, you're putting them together. I guess they are
putting them together.
You're putting them together.
Yes.
And you can't, that to me, that is a dangerous doctrine to run with, because you don't know if those 2 people are compatible.
Yeah, because if all we're doing is getting together and having sex, we don't even know what our real interests are. We don't know what our quirks are. We don't know what ticks the other person off. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to pray. We don't know, like, there's just so much. That's why my prayer, I didn't pray for a person in particular. Like, I didn't say, please let Corey be my husband. I prayed for qualities. And the qualities just kind of revealed themselves the longer that we knew each other. Mm-hmm. Our story is very complicated. But
it is.
But it really is. Just, you don't know how this person is going to be there for you if something detrimental happens in your life, if you come through a crisis. You don't know how this person handles their finances. You don't know. There's just so much you don't know. And then you didn't go through proper marriage counseling, because all you're being told is, oh, you popped up pregnant, or, oh, we know y'all sleeping around, mm-hmm. so just go ahead and get married. And now you are spending the beginning part of your marriage actually dating.
Wow. That's wow. Which, that doesn't mean that when you get married you should know everything about each other, because 10 years and we still are finding out more things about each other as we go along. But it's so true. It's so true. We take that step because our pastors tell us it's okay to take that step, when we really should have been getting marriage counseling, or even, I think we even need to get to where we're having relationship counseling, mm-hmm. where you're dating someone and you go to your spiritual leader or someone who is qualified and licensed to counsel you yes. through your relationship. So, because that. My take on, this has to be another one, but my take on relationships is that God, and I may have done this in the podcast before, God knows who we are now. He knows who we were before, and he knows who we're going to be in the future. So if he knows all of that, all we know is how we feel right now. And we know how we felt in the past. We don't know how we're going to feel tomorrow. And if you all look at your lives, I guarantee you, you are different than what you were 10 years ago.
Oh, definitely.
Me and Sharonda, we may not be totally different people,
but we're different.
There are differences in us and in how we react and respond to certain things than it was when we were first married, or even when we first met each other.
Oh.
So if we're that different,
Corey, he was irritating.
No, please, I was smooth debonair. But if we that was pretty annoying. If we are this different, and there was no way that we could tell that we were going to be this different, it takes a God to put someone together, because he knew that we would be able to handle each other in April of 2021. And
he knew that our development with each other would bring out different things.
Right.
Like, because this podcast, being on a camera, being behind a microphone, it was totally out of the question for me. Mm-hmm. And that's just a simple thing. But the way that I handle stressful situations now has gotten a lot better. It's not perfect, mm-hmm. but it's gotten a lot better. But that's not something that I was able to see right off the bat. And if we were just... we were sleeping around, and then somebody said, well, get me. Don't make that face.
We was. Where was I at?
If somebody was just like, well, you need to go ahead and marry her because you're sleeping around, then that would have kicked our marriage off like into a whole nother spiral.
Setting it up to fail. We got to do better. Listen, that's our time. Where can they find us?
Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts.
Because you don't know. She don't know.
He doesn't know.
You can find us on Anchored and other listening.
That's not even a main one. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. To listen. And everything is at Until Forever on social media platforms.
At Until Forever. You'll see it on your screen. Spotify.
We can never close right. You just always... We're sorry, guys.
Maybe this is right.
No, it's not.
Maybe their perception of right isn't our reality of right.
So we're going to pick the rest of this conversation up for the Marriage in the Church series on episode 9. Thank you for listening or watching.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It will be 9.
Yes, it will.
Man, she can count good. See, the Lord knew I was going to need someone to count for me.